How's it going, everybody? Nerds Rising here, and welcome back to the Nerd Cave. In today's video, we're going to be taking a look at the very last of my pre-ELO matches in the Open Ultra League, featuring a pretty uncommon team. I think Spice might be a strong word for it, because all three of these mons are fairly accessible, and you do see them occasionally, but you definitely wouldn't typically see them on the same team. And I think Suicune especially is borderline spicy. It's just not a mon that's around very much. It is a mon that is really historically super strong. I've had this thing for a very long time, and actually was one of the first legendaries that I double charged for GBL, because back before a lot of the XLs that we currently have, this thing could core break Giratina, the Swamperts. It could do very well against Cresselia, because Cresselia didn't used to have Grass Knot, and it could even do pretty well against the pre-Zap Cannon Registeel. So Suicune is kind of a retro mon that I brought to this team so it could have its comeback, and what you guys are going to see is it definitely had its comeback, because this thing is an absolute beast. So I'm not going to make this intro super long, just because this is my fourth night in a row recording and I am completely exhausted. So I'm going to do my best to get through this commentary tonight, and hopefully it won't be too boring. But you know what? I don't ask for this very often, guys, but if you're enjoying my content lately, give this video a like, let me know in the comments, and subscribe if you haven't, because for me to make 4 videos in a row is quite a bit. I do, again, work full-time, and my wife doesn't go to bed till like 10:30, so I usually record these battles between like 11 p.m. and like 1 or 2 a.m., and my baby wakes up at 7 a.m. every morning without fail. So yeah, I have not been sleeping a lot to bring you guys content, so let me know if you're enjoying it. And without any further ado, let's see what Suicune can do in the Open Ultra League, and we're moving right into the battles. So in the first battle here, we have a Gengar lead into a Ninetales, and this matchup is going to be very dependent on their fast move, and it is a Charm Ninetales, so this is very good for us. And the opponent is actually going to bring in a Swampert, and they are now getting the energy for their Hydro. So I'm going to get my Shadow Ball off here, get their shield, and then overfarm by 1, expecting them to overfarm, and they do. And we catch the Hydro Cannon onto the Suicune, and this is going to be the first of many catches on the Suicune that you guys are going to see. And as you see, that Hydro Cannon just tickles the Suicune, and I know that I'm definitely not in EQ range, so I'm going to call this bait as well. And they Hydro again, and what you're going to see is the opponent is just going to go straight Hydro now, and this third Hydro Cannon doesn't even put us into a range where a fourth one would KO. So that already is showing you guys the just raw bulk of the Suicune here. And they actually shield our pump as well, and now they're down 2 shields, and they bring a Giratina into our Suicune, maybe thinking that we're running like Bubble Beam Hydro Pump, but we're not. The Ice Beam lands, gets them below half, and now we bring in the Gengar to snipe, and we win the CMP on the Shadow Punch here. And this will be the Shadow Sneak, but now what we've done is we've effectively given our Samurott a 2-0 shield advantage, and Samurott is going to 3v1 this team, so, or I should say 1v3 this team. But yeah, we bring the Suicune in here to farm down. They do throw their energy, which is perfect. And now Samurott's going to come in, farm them down. We actually will respect the Claw here, just because I did know that they had a Charmer, and I couldn't afford to let that go and then get charmed down. So the A9 comes back in. They didn't build up too much energy before they switched out, and I was keeping track. So I am aware that they're just about at a Weather Ball, so I am going to call this. And they are now in Hydro Cannon range, and all they have left is the very low health Tina and the Swampert. But you know what? We're going to have a little bit of fun, as we always do, and we're going to go for the resisted Mega Horn BM. We take out the A9 with the BM, and the Swampert will just be getting to their Hydro here, but we will outpace them to the Mega Horn before they get to their next Hydro, and we're going to let them get super close. We throw it just before they get there, and will the Mega Horn KO the Swampert? And yes, it does. And now Giratina is going to get resisted farm down, and that is a GG in game 1 there. So well played to the opponent there, but what you saw is Suicune put in so much work for us on the safe switch there, and leading into the next battle, we have a Shadow Charizard. So pretty scary really to see, but we do have 2 water types in the back. So I tried to catch the Claw there, just thinking that they might throw right away since Gengar is so squishy, and they don't. And now check out Suicune eat this Shadow Blast Burn like it's nothing. Doesn't even put us below half. And the opponent brings in a Wall Ring, which on paper, not the best situation because we are fully walled in terms of charge moves. But what you're going to see again is that Suicune can just shrug off this damage like it's nothing. They are throwing the EQ just before we get to the Hydro Pump, so very nicely done by them. But unfortunately for them, we tank the EQ and we get to a second Hydro Pump. And even though this is resisted damage, this actually will get the Wall Ring fairly low. As you see, we get it into the red health, and they don't get a lot of extra farm after that EQ. So I know they're not at a second EQ, and I know that Gengar can take an Icicle Spear, so I will let this go. I'm going to bank that energy for later, and I'm going to come in and commit to a very, very aggressive Fury Cutter farm down on this Wall Ring. And I do actually respect an Earthquake here. They did have enough for it, and they do full send it. So very nice shield there, and we do get the full farm down on the Wall Ring. And now we already know we have a good matchup against the Shadow Charizard, and there's a Swampert in the back. And Swampert doesn't love to see a loaded Samurott with the shield. So we get the first one off. We get the second one off here, and this probably will be grabbing a shield. And as you're going to see, Samurott is just so spammy with that Fury Cutter. We actually get to the third Hydro before they can even get to the EQ. And this actually was a CMP tie. And since they let that through, I'm going to let this Earthquake through as well. And basically try to sweep this back line with my Gengar here. So I do get to the Shadow Punch here. And I miscalculated a little bit because I thought that they were a little bit lower. And what you're going to see is this is actually going to be a very close endgame. But fortunately, we have a very nice IV Gengar there. And we're actually going to live this last wing attack on 1 HP. And we actually simultaneously KO. And this is going to allow us to come in and Fury Cutter down their Swampert. And that actually was a very close endgame, but very well played to the opponent. So GG's there. And moving into the next battle, a Cobalion. So very nice lead for the Gengar here. Their fighting moves are triple resistant, and they bring in a Cresselia. So I will throw the Shadow Ball just before they get to a future sight, assuming that they're running it. And if they let this go, they do shield. I was going to say, if they let that go, that would do so much damage. And at this point, they're very, very weak to this Gengar already, especially if they're bringing a Cresselia into it. So what I do here is just bring in the Suicune, and I'm just going to use it as a second, third, and basically fourth shield. And that's really all I use this Suicune for, is just using it as a damage sponge. So I bring it in here, I tank 2 Grass Knots very easily, and they're not going to be able to farm me down. And especially after seeing that Hydro Pump land, they are definitely going to have to throw a move here to get rid of us. So I'm going to just let this go. And this thing is now in farm down range for the Gengar, and Gengar still has a shield advantage. So I actually bring it in, and I actually just decide to throw the Shadow Punch here on the CMP tie. I didn't want to give up a shield, and what you're going to see is the opponent actually shields the Shadow Punch. So now I know that they're very, very weak to this Gengar. So I will shield myself, and it looks like they actually weren't running the Future Sight, and they have a Melmetal in the back. So they do go for the double Iron Bash here right away. I knew I could barely live it, but this Shadow Ball is just going to do so much damage on the unshielded Melmetal here, and it's probably nearly going to one-shot, and that does so much. And now I bring the Samurott in, and did we catch the new resisted double Iron Bash? And we did. We catch it. It does barely nothing, and now they will get to either the Superpower or the Rock Slide, but this is totally fine. Our rank 1 IV Samurott can tank this for days, and we're going to have a ton of energy to throw at this Cobalion. So Cobalion's going to be coming back in, but the Cobalion is energy dry, and basically the Cobalion has to come out of this matchup with a Stone Edge loaded for our Gengar in the back. So they now have to get to a Sacred Sword for the Samurott and a Stone Edge, and what you're going to see is Samurott is just way too spammy for that, because we get to 3 Hydro Cannons before they're able to do that, and that is going to be another GG. And well-played game to the opponent there again, and I guess they had the Cresselia that was 1 HP in the back, so GG's there. And moving into the next one here, we have Gengar into the lead against Lucario, so very nice lead for us, honestly. Even though they have Shadow Ball, we do outpace them, and despite Lucario having a very high attack stat, there are very few things that win CMP against Gengar. So we do throw on the CMP tied to their Shadow Ball, and they actually shielded as well, which is pretty crazy. So I was fully expecting a bait there, but it was just so risky to call it that I do end up shielding, and unfortunately I do shield a pup, but the opponent then does not build up to another Shadow Ball. They just throw the pup right away, and that is triple resisted damage. So I let that go, and I do farm up to 5 more, and this will be the CMP tie again to their next move. and we will be taking out this Lucario here. And I'm fully reading that they're going to be weak in the back if they stayed in a pretty bad matchup for them, and they bring in a Giratina. So what I'm going to do here is actually something a little bit different that you might not expect. Rather than, say, switching into the Suicune, I actually bring in the Samurott here. Even though the Samurott is fully walled by Giratina, it does have access to Blizzard, and I figured by bringing it in there that I might scare the opponent into switching out, fearing the Blizzard, and that is exactly what happens. And this is perfect. They bring in a Melmetal, I comfortably tank one move, and now I'm at the back-to-back Hydros, and now after we get this thing very, very low, we will have our Suicune with a shield aligned to their Giratina in the endgame. Whereas if I bring the Suicune into the Giratina initially, they bring the Melmetal into it, and then the Samurott gets aligned with it in the endgame. So that's why I brought in the Samurott. So Samurott ends up taking out the Melmetal just about, and now we can bring in the Suicune here, and we're going to farm up a little bit, and just for fun, we didn't even need to do this, we're going to catch the move on the Gengar. And if this game wasn't over before, it definitely is now, because we have a basically shield advantage Suicune into a Giratina, and what you're going to see is this Ice Beam is going to do so much damage, and once the opponent sees the incredibly bad amount of damage this Dragon Claw is going to do, they're going to be top lefting, and that's exactly what happens. That Dragon Claw just tickles the Suicune, the opponent surrenders, and we take a very nice win there. So beware in the next game. And this, I was not expecting to see this at all, and I have no answer for it whatsoever. So I actually stay in here. Really no idea why. I think I was just contemplating my life, like, what should I even do here? So I farm up quite a bit. I bring in the Suicune at this point again, just to use it as a third and fourth shield like I always do. And the opponent, as you see, is going to hit us with a second superpower, and we just do not care about these moves whatsoever. We still survive it, and the opponent brings in a Trevenant, which is completely perfect. And this way, our Samurott does not have to face this in the endgame. And as you see, Ice Beam does a lot of damage, and the opponent gets greedy over farming, and we reach another Ice Beam. And a Water type here is now going to take a shield advantage from a Trevenant and get it very low in the process. So the nice thing is I did build up quite a bit of energy with the Gengar, so I can bring it back in and win CMP against the Trevenant. And if they want to keep this energy, they're going to have to commit their second shield, and they do. And if they don't throw the Shadow Ball here, Gengar actually will live this as well, and we do. And now we're going to get a couple extra Shadow Claws off, and now we can come in and shield once and farm down with our Samurott. As you see, there actually did have the move on the Gengar there. I could have Shadow Punched the Trevenant to take it out, but I wanted that farm on the Samurott. So I farm down. I have a shield advantage. They bring back in the Beware, and I don't throw my Hydro here because I want them to superpower me first. And that way, the Hydro Cannon is going to do more damage after they debuff their defense. So I wait. I do shield their move. I throw the Hydro on the now debuff Beware. Unfortunately, it does not quite KO, but I should actually be able to farm down, and they recognize that, and they actually try to catch their move on the Charizard, but this is completely perfect because the Samurott is not in one superpower range, and since they waited so long to bring in their Charizard, they're not even going to reach a Dragon Claw. So we double Hydro the Charizard, and now they have to get to the back-to-back moves, and they don't get there, and we Fury Cutter down a Fighting type for the win. So GG's there, and moving into the next battle, we have a Cresselia lead. So pretty decent lead for us, honestly. Even if they're running the Future Sight, we will outpace, and they actually just go straight for a Grass Knot here, which is perfectly fine by me. I will let this go, and I will massively overfarm and throw just before they get to another Grass Knot. So I'm nearly at 100 energy here, and I think at this point, honestly, Shadow Ball probably will KO the Cresselia, and it does from over half health. Gengar hits extremely hard, and then the opponent actually brings the Cobalion into our Gengar, which is not a good matchup for them whatsoever. They do shield up the Shadow Ball, and they do actually farm up to the Stone Edge, but you know what? We're going to catch the Stone Edge onto our Suicune, and they baited anyway, but now, if they're bringing in a Cobalion to our Gengar, I'm thinking they must be super, super weak to this thing and back, and that is why I say switched. So we're just going to stay in with the Suicune and again, just tank these Sacred Swords for days. We do not care about any of this neutral damage. That's now the third move we've tanked on the Suicune, and we will be throwing this Hydro Pump just before they get to their next one, and Hydro Pump on the Suicune, despite it being a very bulky mon, does do quite a bit of damage, as you see. And now, we're just going to let this go. And they threw pretty much right away, so we should actually be able to come in here, farm down with a Gengar. We have two shields. What's in the back? And it's a Togekiss. And here, even if they call the bait here, which they don't, they actually do shield it, our 2-shield Samurott could easily take out this Togekiss, but instead, we're going to land the Shadow Ball. Shadow Ball does massive damage. They see the Samurott. We still have 2 shields, and I absolutely was going to BM the opponent with a Mega Horn there, but unfortunately, they do surrender, and they do not give me that honor, so GG to the opponent in that game, and I think we maybe have like 3 more battles, maybe 4, and here, this is a very, very bad situation for us. We had a Pidgeot into our Gengar, and we really don't have a great answer to this thing whatsoever. So I bring in the Samurott, thinking that they would switch out and maybe we could align our Suicune to it, but what you see here is they're just going to stay in and just debuff us to smithereens here, and this is not going to be a very fun matchup for our Samurott. So Fury Cutters were obviously resistant, and as you saw, they actually shielded the first as well, so now they can just debuff us again and probably just fully wing attack us all the way down, which is not going to be great for us whatsoever. So despite having a shield advantage, we still just really don't have a great answer for Pidgeot. And we do get to another Hydro, but they're just super healthy still. But at the very least, we are getting to another Hydro. Again, Samurott is just so insanely spammy. So we've at least gotten like 4 or maybe even 5 off on this thing. And we actually end up getting them extremely low, which is crazy. So now I'm just going to bring in the Suicune. They're at 100 energy. We're going to tank the damage. And they do actually go for the Brave Bird there, and we actually farm down as well before they get to another, which is crazy. So not sure why they didn't throw the Feather Dance there, but they bring in a Drapion. So this is not great for us because Gengar so far has had 0 good matchups against this team. So we land the Hydro, and I think at this point I'm just going to let the Suicune go, knowing that despite the fact that they have Crunch, the Gengar with the resisted damage is still going to add up against this thing. But then as you see, the opponent has an Obstagoon in the back, so our Gengar literally just had no play against that team whatsoever. And yeah, I surrender there because we were going to get absolutely destroyed by that Obstagoon in the back. So GG to the opponent there. And moving into the next battle, we have a Talonflame, so pretty neutral. So my plan here is going to be to throw the Shadow Ball, wait 1 turn, and catch the Flame Charge onto the Suicune. And that is exactly what we do. We catch another move on the Suicune, and again, they bring in a Trevenant, which is perfect, because now our Samurott does not have to face this in the endgame, and we may actually even be able to get ourselves a shield advantage from this Trevenant. So we overfarm by 3, and we throw the Ice Beam 1 turn before they get to their next Seed Bomb, and I'm hoping that they do overfarm and allow me to get to another one, but as you see, they do throw just before I get there. But again, the nice thing is we get a shield off of this Trevenant. So a Water type takes a shield advantage from the Trevenant. We bring in the Gengar, and again, opponents love to bait Glassymon. So I'm calling the Seed Bomb here. Just a Seed Bomb. We survive it. We get our Shadow Punch off. And now, if the opponent wants to keep this Trevenant, they're going to have to give up their second shield. And they don't. We have a 2-0 shield Samurott, and they have a Wall Rain in the back. So this is going to be a GG already. And you know what? I've got 2 shields. I'm calling another bait. And they Icicle Spear us. And now they bring back in the Talonflame. But since we stayed in with the Gengar and did some Shadow Claw damage, this is now in Hydro Cannon range. We take it out. And now the opponent has no shield to protect them from the wrath of our Samurott with Mega Horn. Mega Horn does so much damage. And the opponent realizes the game is over and surrenders. So GG there. But yeah, he just lost the baiting game in that battle. So Escav in the next battle here. Very nice matchup for us again, and the opponent again is staying in. So I'm recognizing that they must be very, very weak to this in back. So I will throw the Shadow Ball on the CMP to their Drill Run, and they actually shield as well, which is crazy. So they're very weak to this Gengar. So I will definitely want to preserve this. So I do shield, and I know that they will get to their second Drill Run in 6 counters. So I actually farm up and I catch their second Drill Run on my Suicune. And once again, Suicune just is tickled by this neutral damage. And the opponent actually brings in a Giratina to our Suicune. And I think they're going to regret this. First of all, when they see the laughably small amount of damage that Dragon Claw just did. And then once they realize we have Ice Beam and Snarl, they're going to be very, very sad here. So as you see, they actually let that go. So they had no idea what moves we had. And we can very comfortably take another Dragon Claw here. We could probably even take a third one. And maybe not quite after the Shadow Claws. But we're going to either be getting their second shield here or just straight up taking out this Giratina. And they actually do shield it. And now I make the combo play with a Gengar, knowing that we would win CMP. And we don't, unfortunately, we don't take it out, but we do then snipe with one more Shadow Claw. We have a shield advantage, and the opponent's last mon is a Sylveon, and Gengar is just having an absolute field day in this battle. This Shadow Ball is going to do massive damage, and I think at this point, honestly, we can just farm all the way down and then Shadow Ball the S-Cav, and Samurott got to sit that battle out on the bench, so GG there. And I think this actually might be the last battle here. So we have a Drifblim lead, which is not great for us. We will outpace them to the Shadow Ball by 1 turn, but the opponent actually just decides to go straight for an Icy Wind. So I actually am going to call this. I know it's not a Shadow Ball, and I still will get to a potential Shadow Ball before they get to another move, and I think that this probably still would KO. So I actually do bait, and the opponent does respect it. So I bring in the Suicune here, and Suicune, again, can very comfortably take a Shadow Ball, so I do call it, and the opponent baits me with an Icy Wind, and then they bring in a Surfetched, and despite the Surfetched here having access to Leaf Blade, and despite us being 1 stage debuff, that Hydro Pump still does so much damage on the Surfetched, and they're already down a shield, and I am now going to be forcing their 2nd shield if they want to keep this thing alive. We tank the Leaf Blade, and now, if the opponent wants to save this, they have to give up their 2nd shield, and they do. And now at this point, we can just come in with the Gengar, fully Shadow Claw, farm them down, tank these triple resisted counters for days, and we're going to have a shielded Gengar with a ton of energy versus whatever they have in the back. And what is it going to be? As my water softener makes a ton of noise in the background, and it's actually a Drapion. So I decide to actually throw the Shadow Ball, and I'm hoping that this puts this Drapion into Mega Horn range, so we'll have to see. I do let the first go just in case they get the debuff, and they do throw the Crunch, and they do get the debuff as well, which is quite unfortunate. And now I really, really need this Hydro Cannon to KO. Please KO. And they live on like 1 HP, and they get to the potential Shadow Ball. I have to shield this, but I recognize that this probably is going to be an Icy Wind, and it is, so this is really, really rough. And here I make a mistake. I'm thinking they still may be in Mega Horn range, but what you're going to see is, since we're debuffed, they are not, and I'm going to need a 2nd move, so I should have just gone for back-to-back Hydros, but instead, we make the catch onto the Gengar, and that just won us the game, because we will catch the Crunch here, and even if they fully undercharge that, it's still KO'd, and we make it to another Hydro, and that's going to be a very GG. So if I would have just thrown the Hydro initially, I probably would outpace them and not have to make that catch, but I made a little bit of a misplay there, but then we make up for it with a very nice catch. So yeah, that's about all I have to say for today, guys. I am completely exhausted, but I truly do hope that you guys have been enjoying this content lately. I really am trying to get out a little bit more regular videos. I know that my subscriber count has been going up quite a bit recently, but I want to respect that and respect all of you guys who have subscribed by trying my best to get out regular content. So thank you so much for watching this video, and if you are new to the channel, consider subscribing, because the more subscribers we can get, the more Pokemon my wife will let me play.